shockingly enough, you're probably going to hear the the Brexiteers running about in the next couple of days, or maybe even a couple of weeks, shouting "U.S. trade deal, U.S. trade deal. We finally got it. We finally got it. The reason we left the EU, hooray! We finally got it." Meanwhile, of course, as we've said multiple times, if you did an individual deal with the US on a trade deal, it would mean huge problems for the UK, particularly in this area, because the US wants to absolutely crack open all our agricultural markets. And here's the thing, just as we discussed with the Australian trade deal, how the fact that the Australian agricultural market and industry, shall we say, in Australia is huge compared to the UK one, which, bear in mind, as you may remember, 15 years is going to pretty much destroy the UK agriculture industry anyway. The US is now saying, look, we want to open up your markets completely. And here's the thing, the US farm industry, the US lobby over there, that's what they want. And here's the thing, if they open it up here, our farmers can't compete. Our farmers cannot compete because you've seen the Republicans over there in America time and time again roll back animal welfare standards. And of course, what happens, all these, the farm products, all the food is produced to a lot lower standards than our farmers have to produce to because of our high standards, which means that the US, all those agricultural products, all that food massively undercuts our own agriculture. That's what the US wants. That is what it is hoping. And of course, if that happens, well, good night, UK agricultural industry. This was not, of course, what many of the farmers who voted for Brexit for. But we did tell them this is what was going to happen. This was what would happen. And it's happening on a very, very worrying timescale, as we are about to find out. However, it does look that at least there is a bit of resistance from the UK because, well, obviously there's a general election around the corner, and Rishi Sunak doesn't want to go into a general election signing something like this, and every single farmer is out there in their tractor shouting from the rooftops, saying how much Rishi Sunak has undermined UK agriculture, and that they literally can't compete against the US now that they've signed this. And again, it's not a trade deal; it's something else, but it's like almost like a step before like a free trade deal. It's, we're not going to do a free trade deal with you, but in this area, maybe we can do something. And in this area, the US wants to crack open our agricultural market like a walnut. And quite frankly, so will our entire agricultural industry get absolutely cracked under this. We'll see if this develops in any more, but this so far has been kept very much under wraps. Like I say, these are documents that have leaked initially, I believe, to Politico, and then were seen by The Guardian. Hence, again, we're covering it from them today. But yes, this is incredibly worrying. So we'll see what happens in this. But I don't think, if the rumors are now circulating that May potential general election, don't think Rishi Sunak would sign this before going to a general election. It would be even more of an electoral suicide note than he's potentially already signing. So let's go already get into this and find out what's going on here. So, as always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And of course, as always, there is the link to my Patreon page, the One of Station link, where you can buy me a coffee. There's the YouTube thank you button. And of course, there's the Pony Club down below as well. So, on we go. So, this comes from The Guardian with the title of "The US Wants UK to Open Up Its Agricultural Markets as Part of a New Trade Deal." The US is pushing for Britain to open up its agricultural markets to US traders as part of a new economic agreement that would fall just short of a free trade agreement. And bear in mind, this is only coming about because we are so desperate, or at least the Brexiteers in this case, have been constantly trying to push for this. There is not going to be a new free trade agreement. We know that. That has been stated several times how that's not going to happen. But They can do something like this economic agreement. They can do, and of course, it will have big consequences over this. So, continues. Washington and London have begun negotiations over a quote foundational trade partnership, which is what I'm going to call it, which would cover subjects such as digital trade, labor protections, and agriculture, according to documents seen by The Guardian, first revealed by Politico. This partnership would not guarantee any particular levels of access for service providers to offer their products in each other's countries, meaning it would fall short of a full trade agreement that was promised by the Brexit supporters after the Leave vote. So there is no guarantee of levels of access or anything like that. It's but it's deadly and it will have a lot of damage. And once again, I think one of the biggest things that the EU, like pro EU movement, needs to go after is try and get farmers back on board. Try and get them to see, look, things weren't that bad when we were in the EU, and what is being signed up to now is going to destroy the UK agricultural industry. It's going to destroy your industry. You might not have a farm in 15 years. You won't be able to pass your farm onto your next generation or them. There's so much stuff we could be doing and targeting these people. I really do believe there is a missed opportunity by them not going for the like there being a pro EU farmer movement. I really do believe there is a missed opportunity in that. But so where are we? So yes, the negotiations could run into trouble, especially over agriculture. Previous talks over a free trade agreement stalled in part because the UK refused to provide access to American food producers such as chlorine-washed chicken and hormone-injected beef. A spokesperson for the Department for Business and Trade said that the UK and the US are rapidly expanding the work we need together to do together to get a full spectrum of our economic, technological, commercial, and trade relationships through the Atlantic Declaration. A discussion with the US on the next steps, under which is its first of a kind agreement, are ongoing. Basically, we can't get a full trade agreement, but there are some things maybe we could do to do this. Or at least it will be sold as a free trade agreement by the Brexiteers, ultimately. That wouldn't be surprising. Of course, Sunak is trying to, or at least he's hoping to conclude a free trade agreement with India this year, in what would be the biggest deal since Britain left the EU and begun negotiations with its own deals. According to the government timeline seen by The Guardian, the Indian deal will remain the priority, but work on the US agreement will begin in earnest in the new year, with a view to completing it before both countries hold their next general elections. So, as you can see, there is one coming. They know there's one coming. But I expect, according to this, potentially an Indian free trade agreement, which once again will do a lot of damage to this country because Brexiteers do not understand the economy. They do not understand probably the amount of pull and economic power that India has going on and underneath at the moment. The big sticking point, of course, is visas, which is kind of hilarious given the fact what Suella Braverman said at the conference. So I expect sort of Kimmy Badnock and Cyril Braverman to be butting heads over that. Expect news or talks about that probably in the next couple of days or weeks leading up to this, but it's doubtful. It is very doubtful that we will get a free trade agreement with deal. If we do get one, well, it's going to be very bad, to be honest. Like I say, the ones that we've signed so far have been absolutely disastrous. They've not been very good for the UK at all. And of course, the public will eventually come to realize as these free trade agreements do kick in and of course the economic consequences come about, the public will start to realize, oh, actually, these free trade agreements are awful. They're disastrous. What's going on here? Wasn't this meant to be a big positive of Brexit? No, they really weren't. We are a tiny economy compared to some of these economies we are trying to do deals with, especially the case of India and the US. And in these types of agreements, they hold all the power. like I say, this isn't going to go very well. It'll be interesting to say, as they say, the devil is in the detail. So we'll see what is in the detail when it comes out fully. One consequence of this document's revealed is the work on the separate agreements with Canada and Mexico, which will have to be slowed down. The major hurdle remains agriculture, and the Environmental Department is continuing to insist that the UK should not open up to American food products that have been produced at lower and regulatory standards. Why? Because if you do that, guess what? Undercuts our own manufacturers. That will destroy our agricultural products. And like I say, ain't going to end well. You've got all the farmers turning around at a general election. Something, again, if I were a pro-EU farm movement, I would be galvanizing farmers to get out there during a general election and start going after the Conservatives, because they are not protecting UK farming in any way, shape in which they should. Something else that the Lib Dems and probably Labour could make absolute hay on if they went after and win some of those rural seats even more potentially. But hey, we'll see what happens. So if we'll finish it off, it says, one government source said that it would be for the Prime Minister to decide whether to overrule the Environmental Department or risk the US walking away from negotiations. And see, that's the power they have. The US can just walk away. And these negotiations won't hurt them, will not hurt them at all if they walk away from these negotiations. Others, on the other hand, if they walk away, that will go down as a disaster for Brexiteers and Brexit itself, because, hey, you're meant to get this amazing US free trade deal, right? No, because America wants its way. It is the more powerful economy. And as we've discussed many, many times in this, stronger economies get what they want in their trade deals. Like I say, this was always the warning. This is what we were warning about. It's going to massively undercut our own farmers. But hey, we warned you. We warned you several times what the consequences would be, and what's going to go forward. You won't have an agricultural industry, because what will happen is ultimately, the farmers will ultimately go out of business. The Conservatives will go, oh my, why are we all going out of business? Guess we have to lower our standards so that our farmers can compete. Because, like I say, they've signed these agreements that they're not going to want to back out of them, admit that their Brexit promises were good. And like I say, I still think when Labour get into power, not only have they said, well, we're going to renegotiate the EU one, or at least go to the EU and say, look, can we work together? Can we sign some alignment deals on this? And I think the EU will be more than happy to do alignment deals on all kinds of things. I think that's very happy. We've seen the EU say that's what they would like to do continuously throughout all of this thing. So that is very likely to happen. But re-signing a signed trade deal already, that's incredibly hard, because why is the government going to renegotiate a deal which is already incredibly favorable to them? Just the option then for us is A, to completely walk away from it, or to accept even more, should we say, other things in return for a lessening in other areas. It's yeah, it is really not going to go well. It is really not going to go well. We constantly warned about what the problems were going to be and what we were going to face. The fact that you think you can just get a massively favorable trade deal from America when it's the stronger economy, same from India, especially when they immediately said, "Yeah, we're not going to be your imperial bazaar." And especially with the fact that India is incredibly protectionist. So it wouldn't surprise me if we did get this Indian trade deal, and not only does India get like completely full unfettered access, but it is nowhere near the amount of access that the UK gets in return. It would not surprise me if that became the case of the Indian trade deal. And then how does Labour fix that? Well, you can't. You've only got to walk away from it. That's the only way. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But if this leak is to be trusted, then what we've got October, November, December potentially. So there will be one possibly around the corner. We'll see how these negotiations are going. But as we've heard before, these negotiations aren't going anywhere fast, purely because of the visa agreement, and especially as you've seen with the with the whole Conservative Party conference. Yeah, I don't think they're going to want to offer up more visa access, which is what the India really wants. So that ain't happening anytime soon by the looks of it. But like I say, 3 months, we'll see what happens. So, as always, until then, we'll see you all next time.